Hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. My name is Peter Knowles and my pup Geordie here, and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser in Victoria, British Columbia. And we're fixing it up with a long, slow refit to enable it to pretty much cruise extensively. And if that's the sort of thing you might be interested in, why don't you join us and stick around, maybe even subscribe. We're off for our first little boat ride of the year. Aren't we, pup? Yes, puppy boy. Hang in there. Okay then, well, some of you will recognize these pieces as the coaming pieces that go in the cockpit at the top of the bulkhead. And they're ready to go on. I haven't put them on yet because it hasn't really been dry enough to worry about them being out there without any finish on them. And one of the other things I needed to do was attach them together here. And I can't just glue them together, that won't last. I could dowel, I could do a bunch of things. So what I'm going to do is route a 1/4 inch slot in both pieces and put a 1/4 inch wide spline in. Basically a biscuit, but a real biscuit. Of course it won't have much effect in here, but not entirely, because it'll be at least a flat surface that will be glued to that flat surface there. And then I'll have to recut that out again. It's a bit of work, to tell you the truth, but I want these rock solid. I want this to be one piece of wood for the rest of time. So I've set up the rudder table, and that's a 1/4 inch bit set up about a 1/4 inch right now. I'll do successive cuts deeper and deeper as I make this trough. That bit is getting a bit dull. Wind it up a bit. Okay, so that slot is cut nice and deep. That'll be plenty deep for a little spline to make this into a solid piece of wood. Now I wish I'd done the curved piece for the other side while I was doing all these, and I'll tell you why. Because the long one for the other side is way too long to do standing up. I'm going to have to put the rudder on the floor and work on my knees. Rawr. Okay, so to make the splines, I just need a piece of 1/4 inch wide, roughly that long, roughly that thick mahogany that's end grain in this direction. I'll rip 2 sections out of this, one this way, cut them off, and we'll see how we do. All right, goggles. Yeah. So here we go, discard the middle piece, and these should be perfect little splines. Let's see. Nice. Okay, let's get rid of this thing. Okay, so this should be pretty straightforward. If I'm not missing something, I'm going to glue that in there. Basically, I'm going to use the holes that are already in here to screw it to the bench as a clamp. To make sure it doesn't glue itself to the bench, I'm going to put down some parchment paper, and everything else should just go swimmingly. So let's dry fit both of these. Okay, so that one looks pretty good. We'll go in. Sorry about that. How you guys doing? Yeah, I knocked you off the bench. Okay, let's try not to do that again. Pick up where we left off. This spline goes in there. Okay, so we're good. Everything should go together. Now, fill this with glue. All over that surface, all over and all down in there. Okay, let's do the same on here. Lots there, lots here. And of course the face, because, you know, we are gluing the face as well. And let's put it together. Oh, what a nice sticky mess. Yep. Okay. Good. Good. Wipe off at least the worst of the excess from here down into there and around. Lay that down right there. And let's put some screws in. When those screws come up, this will be one piece of wood. Okay, let's do that again here. Down in there, there, that a nice mess? Let's scoosh this together, making a ton of excess glue. Pick up some of that. Excellent. Super pleased. Alright then, so let's see how these turned out. Awesome. Fantastic. A little sanding, and that will be one piece of wood. This one I've already taken off. Equally pleased with it. So let's get a little sanding done here, and then I'll have to trim out a little bit of the spline down to the same level as here because of the planks that are on there. So I'll just have to run that through probably hand. I don't know how I'll do that. But anyway, let's just keep moving here. Beautiful. Okay. There we go, nice and smooth. Love it. Just getting ready to mount this brow piece for the final time, and that forces a couple of decisions. Just a bit of background. You know the bulkhead is new, you know the planks here are new. The plywood on the deck is in really good shape. Someone glassed the top of the deck at some point, and in some places it's in good shape, and frankly, in some places it's really not in good shape. So I know there's major repairs to do over there. This corner is probably similar. So I know I'm going to replace this at some time in the not too distant future. Some of you are laughing. So there's work to be done here. I won't elaborate it, but I do need to keep it from leaking in the meantime. And because when this, well, if I just sort of simulate, this coaming goes up against here, well, it creates a dam. The idea being to deflect the water off the deck and down the side, off the cabin top, and not down over all of this and into the cockpit. So as a result, this has to be a pretty good watertight seal. So what I've done, I've just sanded the very edge of this fiberglass to get a fairly clean bite. I'll clean that up with acetone, and I should be able to get a relatively good caulking joint in there. Only caulking. I'm not going to glass this because I don't want to make a permanent physical connection between that fiberglass and the coaming, because there should be some flexibility, some ability to move there. Anyway, I'll pay very close attention to this joint, let me tell you. Because this is about to be a savage bit of sealant mess. Because I'm going to bed this in sealant, I want to at least somewhat reduce the destruction and mess on the planking below, because it's going to come streaming out of here, and I'm probably just going to take my finger and glue it everywhere, and it'll be all over the bottom of this. Yeah. Anyway, I'm actually going to oil the bottom of this and the back of this so that the sealant won't stick to it too badly, and I might be able to wipe it off. Otherwise, at least I'm using 291, which is sandable. Okay, I'm really not looking forward to this. Acetone wipe down. Now, to be honest, I'm not looking for the sealant to bond the trim piece to the boat. In fact, I'd like it not to, so that it could be removed if it needed to be repaired or want to do the work up here. But I do want it to act as a perfectly void-filling gasket. So I'll do the trick of putting lots on, getting it good and goopy, pulling it in with the screws, cleaning it out the best I can, and not pulling it in all the way with the screws, letting it get a little bit harder, and then pull in a little more. And that hopefully will create a gasket, but not stick too well to my trim pieces, because I'm going to oil the back of them, which I want to do anyway, to seal the back, to make sure that every piece of wood outside is sealed on all four sides, but at the same time it'll become a bit of a bond breaker, and time will tell whether that's a good idea or not. Yeah. Where are you going there, pup? Oh, did I give you a scare? Oh, pup, have a good stretch. It's getting warmer, nice to be outside, eh? Okay. What do you see there, pup? What do you see outside? Helicopters. Lots and lots of helicopters. Yeah. So I'm going to fill each one of these little chamfers. And oh, crying out loud, I'm just going to pump. Okay then, another glorious day. The bungs are all dry. Time to cut these off. Finish this up and get some oil on here, get it cleaned up. We're getting relatively close to varnishing. Likewise, we'll cut these plugs off, get some more oil on there, and get ready to varnish. What do you think, Pup? Hey, how about the weather coming around? What are you doing? Pup had a very busy run in the park this morning with a much younger dog. He's an alpha, but he's an aging alpha. Sorry, Pup. Alright, you'll have to excuse the helicopters. They're basically just running continuously today. Anyway, some of you'll remember when I built this piece, I left this kind of like a blunt end, kind of seemed unfinished. Well, that's because I'm going to put a trim piece down here. I know my head's in the way. Anyway, not particularly interesting. Let's just get this done. There we go. Stand that up a little bit, ease the edge, and that one's done. That one's done. Let's do the other. Alright, so this is it. It's finally time to get some oil on here. And I'm so pleased because I've got to get to the point where I can take this canopy off because I am frying in here. Okay, so it's time for another coat of oil. It's amazing. That's 3 coats of oil, and it looks like $1,000,000, doesn't it? And that's 1 coat of oil, so it's just barely starting to look beautiful. So anyway, between coats, I just give a quick rub down with the white Scotch-Brite, which is the very, very least aggressive. Basically, it just takes off any maybe little bits of fuzz or something that might have been on there, and I can get going. After I've got quite a few coats on, it would take a bit of a sanding with maybe 300, 320, something in that range. Anyway, this is what I'm doing now. Get a little more oil on here. Yeah, can't wait. Can't wait. Can't wait to clean it up out here, actually, is what I want to do. Look what I just found. My old Land Rover model. I love that thing. Sun's kind of killed it over time, but still looking good. All cleaned up and ready for varnish. One thing that I'm trying to keep as a policy on the boat is to make sure that I can always keep the bilges clean. So the way I've designed this to get underneath the tanks here, I don't know if you can see, I can always get a vacuum in and under all the way to the center of the boat. And I just hate the idea of junk. In this case, it would be mostly sawdust from all the work I did in here, building up there and holding moisture and clogging up the limber holes and such. So that's all vacuumed out. I've also just given it a good dose of tea tree oil. Now, I am a huge believer in tea tree oil. There's only, I don't know, maybe less than an ounce in here, a few drops really, and water acts as the carrier. But in my experience, it is a fantastic mold and rot deterrent. I remember using it in my Airstream and my other boats. You spray just a few sprays in the boat in the fall, and there'd be no mold at all, none. So basically, I continuously drench the scantlings, frames, ribs, inside hull, anything with this stuff, just to make sure there's a constant presence of the oil in it. So lots of tea tree oil, keep it in here all the time. All right, let's get some varnish on. So it's really just the lightest sanding, just to knock off any bumps and to slightly key it. I'll give this a wipe down after as well. And now what I'm sanding now, of course, is the tongue oil, which currently is looking absolutely fantastic, but in 2 weeks in the sun, then it won't. Now I can hear the more professional wooden boat enthusiasts out there wincing at my rather laissez-faire varnish prep here. But this boat lives outdoors 365 days a year. It's never going to have perfect bright work. Looking after the bright work on a wooden boat is an immense amount of work. And I've decided to do the bright work at a level that is a lot of work, but manageable. So basically, by being a little more cavalier, I get a 90% varnish job in 30% of the time, or something like that. Anyway, I'm totally content. I love the way the boat works, and I don't worry too much about varnish. Alright then, so I use Epiphane's varnish. It is not cheap, but it is, in my opinion, absolutely the cream of the crop. Obviously, many others will disagree and have their own. I haven't used every boat varnish out there. I've used quite a few. I love the way this flows. I love the way it holds. I love the UV protection it has, which is minimal because it's clear, but it's some. So basically, it's what I use. So let's put about that much in there to get started. I'm certain I'm not the first to observe that if you're gonna love wooden boats, you pretty much have to love varnishing. And I hate painting, but I love varnishing. It's because it brings out the wood. It just, every stroke you put on turns wood from gorgeous to stunning. And you know it's preserved, and you know it's the last step. I don't know, there's just something about it, especially the cavalier attitude I have about varnishing. Pretty relaxed, laid back, easygoing. It's just such a pleasure. Inside, outside, doesn't matter. Well, this feels great. Oh my gosh, it's nowhere close to being complete, but to have the canopy off and get to sit outside here again just feels like $1,000,000. What do you think, pup? Yeah, this is your sunny place. This is your sunny place. So there's lots and lots and lots to be done yet. I have to refinish the door again just so that it matches. Of course, the thwarts still need varnish. They've only got epoxy on them. And the sole. I'd like to think that it'll be teak someday soon, but that's about $1,200 worth of teak, so that won't happen all that soon. And of course, I need a new transom door sometime in the not too distant future, and that's sort of a compound curve from hell, isn't it? Other than that, you know, it's going to be fine for the next little while. I'm really, really, really pleased. And heck, there's lots of other stuff to do. Isn't there, Pop? We'll keep busy, eh? Yes. And hello, welcome to this week's Beer of the Week. This week we're featuring another local microbrewery, which is also a pub, and it's the 4 Mile Pub, which is one of the old historic roadhouses out towards the Western Communities, as they call it. There's the 4 Mile, 6 Mile, I think there's a 17 Mile. Anyway, this is their Blackest IPA, and I have not had this at all. The only thing I can read off the bottle that gives any sort of description is strong beer, and well, that sounds good to me. I even went to the website, and there's nothing on there. There's an under construction. So let's fire this up and see what we think of Blackest IPA from the 4 Mile Brewery. I have no idea how it'll pour either. Let's just have a go here. Well, it's definitely dark. What do you think of that? That is the blackest IPA I have ever seen. Let's pour a little head on the end because it doesn't seem to be very carbonated. See what we can get. It looks a lot like a porter going on so far. It does smell lovely. We're getting a bit of a head coming on there, which means I better get going with a sip because this is, no, looks like it's pretty stable. Anyway, so let's see what we think of the Blackest IPA. Wow. I would say a porter. Frankly, I really don't taste hops. I'm tasting a porter, a fairly bright carbonated porter. Tasty. I don't think I'll buy it again, but I do like to support the local microbreweries, so that's just fine. Yeah, not so good. Anyway, I'm feeling bad because I now want to cheers this week's new patrons, and I don't have a really awesome beer to cheers them with. So I'm going to cheers them with enthusiasm, and that goes out to Bob Orr, Justin DeCow, Daniel Ho, and Stephen Simpson. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming aboard, and I cheers you with the enthusiasm of a fine beer, even though this really isn't one. I will drink it. Anyway,